Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, Jamie. Doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm good. It's been a good week. Well, for gaming news and everything else, basically, it's been interesting because you know Starfield, one of the biggest games of the year, has just came out, and now everyone's in this sort of phase of just mainly just talking about that. We have a lot of topics about Starfield later in the show, but until we get to all that stuff, have you been playing anything interesting this past week?
Well, Starfield, I
Yeah.
suppose. I've been um, living among the stars for quite some time, and a little Power Wash Sim, and yeah, that's about it. How about you, man?
Sea of Stars, Starfield, Everspace 2. I try to mix things up a bit because the problem with me in big games such as Starfield, and this happened with like The Witcher 3, Skyrim, Oblivion. Like if I'm playing a big open world game that I'm going to be playing for like 3 months, I have to take little breaks. Otherwise, I get burnout. But yeah, gaming's good at the minute, man. Like everything's just so good. A bunch of cool things coming to Game Pass this week. It's a good time to be a gamer. You know what? We may as well just get straight into the topics because we had a big topic going to the list right before the show started, and that's the Unity situation, which affects literally everyone listening. Everyone listens after the show, basically most gamers, which is um, a colossal crap storm. What's going to happen? But we'll get into that in little bit. But yeah, the Cyberpunk 2077 expansion is out soon, proving that September is once again an amazing month for RPGs. Well, they put out some gameplay today on the official Twitter, and it looks incredible. Like, Logan, did you play Cyberpunk 2077 at all?
I played a few minutes just screwing around with Character Creator and stuff like that, but I was waiting until this expansion came out to really jump in.
Yeah, well, I've played since the game was fixed early last year, I think it was, and that game is like phenomenal. Like it's kind of like a Bethesda RPG, but cyberpunk. But the biggest draw for me away from the game was the gameplay itself, the shooting, the combat. It wasn't that good. Like there was something very stiff about the controls, and recently they did hire ex Call of Duty developers, so from what I saw today, they've clearly improved the first person shooting, and it looks crisp now. So even though they fixed it last year with all the updates and they gave it its next gen patch, like the game, the expansion and all the updates that's coming out this, I think it's 2 weeks time, like it completely changes the game again. It's the game that keeps on giving because the developers, they sat down, they fixed the game, they gave it a next gen upgrade, and listened to all the feedback and crap they got for 2 years, and now they've come out with this free patch. It's going to give everyone a lot of big upgrades of gameplay and all that stuff. But like the expansion comes out soon, and it's basically the size of an entire new game. So like I'm kind of happy for CD Projekt Red because this is basically the game they originally wanted to launch, but it's bigger. There's more gameplay elements. There's car-based combat now. You can literally lean out of the car door and fire at other people. It's I've been looking forward to Cyberpunk since like 2012, right? Since it was first teased, and I've put off playing it. I've had multiple breaks now and then, and now it's clearly at the point where it's going to be one of the best RPGs ever made. People still make memes about it, but at the end of the day, the game came out. It didn't perform well. It had issues. They fixed it, and now they're fixing it again, going beyond what they had to do. And the story expansion looks fantastic. And like, I'll be playing it day one. Like, Logan, do you think you are getting the expansion right?
But yeah, I will for sure. I love CD Red and, these expansive RPGs in general, so definitely will be jumping in.
And it basically improves every piece of combat, even the upgrade skill tree, which was I thought the skill tree in Cyberpunk is atrocious. Like, and if anyone in the chat's listening and you've played and you know what skill tree I'm talking about, it's not a good skill tree, right? Skill trees don't need to be complicated. Just do it very simple. And it looks like they simplified it. They've basically listened to every piece of like feedback, which is what you love to hear, especially about something like this. Anyway, we'll move on. I'm just happy for CD Projekt Red because, like, from all the staff I've spoke to over there and just what they posted on Twitter, they're really excited that the game's finally going to be in its quote-unquote ultimate state. Anyway, wow, we have like 50 topics. You know what? Let's just jump into the Unity stuff now because the Unity situation basically popped up today and it's going to affect a lot of gamers because whether, like, when people play a game, you get that logo at the beginning that tells you which game engine they use. Unreal Engine, for instance. When a developer signs up to use that, they can pay, right? They can pay to basically have that logo disappear, right? You don't have to have that logo at the beginning, but everyone knows what Unreal Engine is. Well, with Unity, as far as I'm aware, it's the other way around, right? You have to pay to have the logo. And Unity's always had this bad representation. There's a lot of janky games that have been released on iPhone, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch that do use Unity, and the company that run the engine don't know how to do business properly. So behind the scenes, we may get these games, but like the developers making the engine, I've heard that like some people aren't getting paid, all this stuff, and the company's kind of been in disarray for months, years even. Well, how is this going to affect everyone? Where am I going with this? So it just came out today, and this is one of the shadiest things I've ever heard of, right? This was going to be a tiny topic that I might not even mention. It's probably going to be one of the biggest gaming stories of the year. So, Unity, they charge people for a license, which is, kind of standard practice. And basically, as of the 1st of January 2024, they're going to start charging the developers for every install. Not purchase, install. So let's say you playing, I don't know, I'll make a game up, Cube 3, right? Cube 3. And you buy it. It's a Unity-based game. You're enjoying it. You delete it because you want to save some hard drive space. And then maybe 6 months later, you fancy playing it again. Well, it turns out the developer will have to pay for that second install. Meaning that if you are one of the extremely toxic people online, a bunch of people can band together and essentially put a developer out of business just by constantly deleting and reinstalling the game. And I've never, and this has nothing to do with the quality of the engine of Unity versus Unreal Engine. This isn't that topic. It's the business practice of what's happening from January 1st. And it's going to affect a lot of gamers listening because a lot of Game Pass games use Unity. And a lot of people download games and maybe never play them. Or if they do play them, they wait maybe a few months or whatever. Like, I download games and never play them for weeks sometimes. It's just what happens. And it's going to affect a bunch of developers. And basically, a developer came out today. There's this Soul-style game coming out in 2024 where you play as a crab. It actually looks really cool. And they came out today saying, look, it's going to affect them and it's going to affect hundreds of developers. Because everyone listening, if you have Game Pass and you see this crab game, right, in early 2024 and think, oh, it looks nifty, maybe you play it for 5 minutes, maybe you don't play it at all, the developer is going to have to pay Unity just because you installed it. What the F? That is one of the shadiest things I've ever heard. Logan, before I pop off even more, you told me about this situation and it just kind of went off.
Yeah, it. The old stereotype about corporations being soulless husks and like just everybody's just a number and stuff like that. This is where you get that whole vibe and mentality and reputation from. Like, there are lots of good people in big corporations, and there are some really good corporations out there. But then you see stuff like this that makes you just, it is just shameful. And just the greed is just astounding. Like, I get it, from a purely, like, screw everybody. Just like bottom line numbers. Like, hey, I'm a math guy and or a financial guy in the department at the company, and I'm like, look, we make this much money per every purchase of this game, what a yada yada yada. But now there's these subscription based things like Game Pass, PSN Plus, whatever throughout the industry. What if we found a way to charge them every time they download it? That's even more money for us. See, like, who wouldn't sign off on that? But then it's like, wait a minute. You are literally crippling indie developers by doing this. And, I'm not in the room at Xbox, but I have to imagine they would not be so thrilled with this news, especially when they have, an obscene amount of indie devs and other studios who put games in Game Pass that use Unity. Like, do you really think that Xbox is going to be thrilled with the idea of your service being damaged reputation wise and analog wise, financially, and their deals that they could potentially sell to other developers to join Game Pass? Because this other company is going to be like, well, every time it's a download, you got to send a check our way. Like, that's an existential threat to their very business model. So, like, even outside of indie developers, one of the three big dogs out there, I would very strongly guess is very, very angry right now.
Yeah, well, as you were speaking, I just found something out about this whole situation, which kind of makes sense, and it makes the situation look even shadier, right? I don't think anyone else has picked up on this on Twitter, so I'll break it. So, Sea of Stars is an absolutely massive game, and it launched day one in Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. It also launched on Steam and Nintendo Switch, right? It's an absolutely colossal game, right? And despite the fact that it launched in those two services, it sold 250,000 copies in just a few days. And the developers are happy, I'm sure the publisher's happy, all that stuff, right? Good times. Guess what engine it uses? Unity.
Unity.
Yeah. So I'm thinking they know the numbers. They're looking at how many sales they got. They're looking at how many people played Sea of Stars via Game Pass and PlayStation Plus and figured out this is a way to monetize it. So they want to monetize games they aren't making, which are going on other services. So the situation got shadier. Like, I've never seen anything this deplorable, right? I've been covering gaming for years now. I've been interested in gaming my entire life, and this has to be top 5, like, most controversial decisions ever made, because there's, like, that crab game I'm talking about. It might not sound like much, but it's just one of the many games we're going to see over the next year plus come to Game Pass day one that are made with Unity. And there's some really good games made with that game. That engine. But it's going to affect a lot of people and developers. And I'm just like, I'm astounded. I'm shocked. Right? Because one of the benefits of Game Pass, and I assume you can do the same thing on PlayStation Plus, is that if a game has come to the service, sometimes you can install it maybe a week early, sometimes a month early. And basically, Unity they wanting some extra money for those installs. Like, wow. I'm actually shocked. And people need to push back on this. Everyone needs to push back on this. Developers, people, don't harass the people that work at Unity, because again, this is the bill pushers. This has nothing to do with the people that make the engine. But, like, people have to be vocal about this, because we've seen in the past, if people are vocal enough about something, we can get it turned over. And this is bad. This is really bad. Like, and honestly, I bet it has something to do with Sea of Stars doing so well. Because a 250,000 sales, and it's this such a good of a JRPG, and I'm thinking maybe a couple of million people have installed Sea of Stars. So Unity have looked at that number thinking, well, if they get 20 cents per install, I believe it said 20 cents, like, that's a lot of cheddar, which they didn't have to work to get. Like, I can't believe it. I might try and get in contact with one of the Sea of Stars developers, because this is just awful. Like, Like in the short term, it's not going to affect anyone, but like long term, like next year, we're going to see a lot of developers move away from Unity, either go with Unreal Engine, their own custom engine, or Frostbite or not Frostbite, CryEngine. But yeah, it's developers like Unity's been in a bad spot for a long time. Like you may notice over the past 5 years, less and less games use Unity. You don't fire up a game every Tuesday and see that logo when you start a game. It's not common practice anymore. And now we're gonna see it less and less. There's gonna be less competition between engines, and it's gonna screw over everyone. And yeah, I'm actually shocked. Like, Logan, have you got anything else to say on the topic before I move on? Because like this is like kind of colossal.
Like basically all I have to say left is like this is one of those ever so often there's a decision that could change the industry, like a tipping point or a completely, boom or bust potential for a company or their products or the people who work with them. And this is one of those. Like, if they go ahead with this, then I have a hard time seeing it going positively. It just, the anger has been just astronomical. It's probably just going to rile up even more. You would imagine there's probably people talking to their reps in various fields and departments about like, all right, what are our contracts? What are we doing with this and this and that? Now, are there any loopholes or exit clauses? Like all kinds of stuff like this. This is not a small deal. It might seem like, oh, it's just an engine or 20 cents or this or this. Like this is one of those like kind of like backdrop things like usually you'd see. You're like, oh, some Unity news. Oh, okay, cool. Move on. Like now, this is one of those that you actually should pay attention to for a while.
Yeah, I think this is one of the only times I've ever seen Unity trending on Twitter. Like, it's rough, man. Like, a lot of indie games, like even mid-tier and AAA games use it. It's, wow, what a crappy situation. Anyway, we'll keep people posted on that because, again, it affects everyone. And a lot of games that come to Game Pass are Unity. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. Man, what a dodgy situation. On with that. Let's talk about dodgy situations. I don't understand how in 2023 people like game developers or publishers try and get away with this crap, right? Because now more than ever we have direct access to them, be it via social media, and whenever something happens, bad or good, they instantly hear about it and get the reaction. Microsoft wanted to raise Xbox Live Gold. I think it was like January 2022, and within 12 hours it was overturned. Right? People need to like be vocal, and I feel like sometimes in gaming people kind of pick and choose the battles. So we got Xbox Live Gold to remain at its price, although the whole thing's changed now. People aren't really vocal about streaming services going up in price. That goes for Netflix. Netflix goes up in price every few months, it feels like. Disney Plus is about to go up in price. I know PlayStation Plus is going up in price like $40 on the higher end tier. And people just really aren't vocal, And like, remember the $70 games thing? Or £70 games? Like, people were vocal for a little bit when 2K announced their sports games were going to be, $70. When Sony did it, nobody was vocal. And then, when eventually Xbox did it, some people were vocal because, they did it. But at the end of the day, people pick and choose their battles when all these things actually affect all of us. Be it the Unity thing or the subscription prices going up. Wages haven't gone up that much, so the price of inflation is affecting people even more because the wage increase doesn't affect the amount of like the price of everything going up. Anyway, where I'm going with this, it's like people need to be vocal for everything, right? We have to be. I said the other day, Microsoft announced they're coming out with an Xbox credit card, The truth is, a lot of brands come out with credit cards. You can get an Apple credit card. PlayStation came out with their own credit card and it has the same ASRP or whatever you call it as the Xbox one, and that came out in 2017. Uh, People need to be vocal about all of it rather than some of it, you know. And I feel like this Unity thing, this is the biggest one. It really is, because a lot of games use that engine, and if you have 30 million people that, let's say, have Game Pass or whatever, like that's a lot of people that could potentially download a game, play it for a little bit, or play the whole thing, or maybe not at all. Like I install games all the time just in case I maybe want to play it, maybe just to be a bit more of a convenience for us. But this is going to screw over a lot of developers, and it's just I don't understand. Did they see the blowback not happening? Did they think, oh, developers will be, they'll be fine with this, even though if you own a game, you have to charge for the install? Like that is batshit crazy. Like what the hell is that? They out of their minds. And prediction, developers, and bear in mind this is if they don't overturn this. I think within the next year, 12 months, Unity will be shut down because developers will stop using the engine, and they will be on their last legs, because this is such a big enough move that if they don't overturn it, it's going to completely tank Unity as a company. It really is. Again, if you look at it first, it might seem like a small situation. Like this is up there with the whole Xbox DRM situation or the 2011 PSN hack. Like this is like massive in how many people it affects. Like millions of gamers, hundreds of thousands of game developers across the world, and it's a shady AF move. I'll put it like that. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say before we finally change topics?
No, I guess Unity did bring everybody together, just not the
Yeah,
way they wanted
yeah,
it.
kind of. Eventually, I. We'll move on. We've got some good stuff to talk about. So, Star Wars Dark Forces. That game came out in, I think it was 95 or something. So it was before I was able to play it, and I've always kind of wanted to play it. I like all the Star Wars games as well. And anyway, it got announced it's getting remastered by Night Dive Studios. They've remastered a bunch of other games, and a few of their other games are also coming to Xbox soon. Well, it turns out the game is actually coming to Xbox soon, and it looks fantastic. And if you haven't played it, this came out in the era where basically every game was copying Doom. So everything was just labeled as a
Yeah.
everything was a Doom clone. But this has cutscenes, it actually looks really good. The remaster, they put a lot of care into it. So back then you used to have these like sort of 2D sprites, like these cardboard cutouts just walking around. So if you play like Doom 1 or Doom 2, it is like that. But in this, the remaster, they look like 3D models. They actually look really good. And yeah, it comes out soon. They didn't give a specific date, but there's a new trailer out. And if you like Star Wars, and I think it's set in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Like if you want some like classic Star Wars games, like Night Dive Studios are gonna clearly come out with more because so many people are hyped about this. Again, I never got to play it back in the day, but now I will. I've always wanted to play it. Logan, I know you're excited.
Yeah, I'm euphoric. I've always wanted to play this game. I actually think this one takes place before A New Hope because this one was the game that introduced Kyle Katarn to Star Wars lore. And if you're big into Star Wars, you know who that guy was in the old expanded universe. The guy who originally stole the Death Star plans, and for Rogue One, and Disney and changing everything, and it looks incredible. I can't wait. It's one I missed out on because I was too young to play it when it first launched. But yeah, like Night Dive has quickly shot up my list as one of my favorite studios out there. I've just absolutely enjoyed everything I've played from them. Like they are just like chef's kiss, just brilliant at remastering and renovating these older gems, and just keep it coming. Can't wait to play this day one, 100%. Super stoked for it. Then they have another game coming very soon, Rise of the Triad, the remastered of it. is coming to Xbox, I think, late this month, like the 29th. So be on the lookout for that one as well.
Before we continue the topic, we have the first super chat of the day by Nick W for the $4.99. Thank you very much. He says, "Are you guys excited for Lies of P and MK1 next Tuesday?" For me, I'm so excited for Lies of P because I've played that demo a lot. I loved the demo. I was probably the first person on Twitter to talk about the game when it was just it was announced one time at 3 a.m. UK time. I'm like, oh, I love the look of this. But I think that game looks phenomenal. It plays phenomenal, and we all know it's kind of a Soul style game, but I think it has a lot of quality of life improvements that I think the genre needs, kind of. But I think people will love it, and yeah, I'm excited when it comes to Mortal Kombat. For some reason, and I've mentioned this before, for some reason, when I turned 19, I could not play fighting games anymore. As a kid, I was always into fighting games. It was mainly Mortal Kombat and Tekken. And then, for some reason, I turned 19 and I couldn't drink tequila anymore, and I couldn't play fighting games. Something happened. Some neurons kind of just disappeared. So I'll be watching people play that because I'm just crap at fighting games. I play a fighting game occasionally when I go over a mate's house when we drink, but outside of that, maybe not for me. The thing is, I will probably get Mortal Kombat at some point just to play the story because I think that studio can make really interesting stories. That's why I have the Injustice games, because I love those fighting game campaigns. But yeah, I can't wait to play that. Logan, what about you?
I am, like you, not the biggest fighting game guy. I enjoy Killer Instinct from time to time, or fire up Mortal Kombat if I can pick it up deep on sale. They had that bundle where you could get Ultimate of Mortal Kombat 11 and Injustice 2 for $10. They had that brief bundle, so I snagged it up. It's fun for a few minutes to me, but not really my thing. But absolutely stoked for the other one and can't wait for that game.
Yeah, I mean, I put it like this, right? This is how bad I am at fighting games. So, like I said, I used to be amazing at Tekken in Mortal Kombat. And for some reason, again, I turned 19, I just couldn't play them anymore. I'm so bad at fighting games that when we get the Xbox Game Pass quest, that maybe once a month or something, where it's win 10 matches in Injustice. I admit, I popped that thing on the easy, right? I picked the weakest character, and I still kind of get my ass kicked, because I don't know, for the past few years, I just can't play fighting games. I'm just awful. But yeah, Lies of P though, can't wait. It's going to be an amazing game. And when it comes to, by the way, when it comes to Mortal Kombat content on YouTube, you may see less of it, because YouTube is kind of against the stuff in that game, right?
Slightly gory,
yeah,
just a little bit.
Yeah, so you'll notice if people put together gameplay footage of any game, they remove the violent stuff. So when I do my top 10 games coming out of the month list, I had to be very careful to not show any violence in a Mortal Kombat game while covering Mortal Kombat. So they didn't make that easy, I'll put it that way. But yeah, thank you very much for the $4.99, Nick W. But yeah, Night Dive Studios, Star Wars. I hope they come out with more Star Wars games. It's one of the reasons why I was giving Aspire some praise, because I love shiny new games, right? But the truth is, a good game is a good game, right? If a game is 20 years old, I don't care. One of the best RTS games I've ever played came out in, I think, 2002, 2003, and that was Star Trek Armada 2, right? By the way, they could put that thing on consoles and it would run well and play well. But that game is still amazing to this day. Homeworld, still amazing. And I think it is cool to have these remakes in the future of all these games, right? With shiny new graphics, maybe take the story in a different way, Resident Evil or Final Fantasy VII, or basically any of the big remakes. I think it's cool to have these old games come back, right? The Gex games from PlayStation 1 are coming to all platforms, and I guarantee you those games are going to look like crap. But guess what? I'm going to be there day one playing Gex, this PlayStation 1, looking game on my Xbox because I loved it. You know, I've admitted I'm basically going to get the Metal Gear collection to play a PlayStation 1 port, right, on a modern console. Right? I'm admitting that because I don't care if a game's old. A game's a game. Logan, I know you like old games as well because, like, I love new games, but we need to like also respect the past. But in the past, we also have a ton of good games as well.
Yeah, I'm a very much 100% staunch believer that a good game is a good game, whether it's, ancient game or a brand new title. Just like films and TV shows and other things. Like, yes, some things do not age well for various reasons, either culturally or the film quality or whatever. Like, some things don't age well. But, for the vast majority of things, like, if it was good then, there's very good chance it's good now. And, just like you don't hear people criticize people for watching Star Wars or Godfather or Lord of the Rings or some of these films that are 20, 30, 40 plus years old anymore. Like, they're classics, they're things people love, they're ingrained in pop culture. Like, video games should be treated the same way. Like, Knights of the Old Republic came out in 2003, Knights of the Old Republic 2 came out in, 2004, Ocarina of Time 98. you know, so many of my favorite games ever are really old. They had a lasting impression on me, and I still go back and play them because they mean that much to me. And that maybe part of that's nostalgia, but also with like, I had an impression for a reason, and it hasn't changed. So yeah, I'm very much for good games are good.
I mean, look at Mass Effect. That game is like what 16 years old, and I talk about that game every single day, right? Every single day, without fail, I will talk about Mass Effect, and it's an old game essentially. Um, I love the fact that we have these collections coming. We still have remakes coming. It's one of the reasons why, like, look, PlayStation gets a lot of pushback because they do seem to just remaster a lot and remake a lot. But like on Xbox, with it being a backwards compatible machine, you have access to, like, let's say the old Gears games, the original Gears games. But if they came out with a remake, which they did with Ultimate of the first game, you can choose between which one you want to buy. Do you want to play both? And that's why I keep saying they should do Gears 2 and Gears 3 because we have access to the originals. So like, there's not really any issue. It's one of the reasons why I'm pushing for that, and I kind of believe it's true. Is that the Oblivion remake? I 100% believe that's true, and it kind of makes sense. But yeah, Night Dive Studios, they rocking. And speaking of Night Dive Studios, another one of their games got rated for Xbox, and it's coming soon apparently, and that is the System Shock remake. Now, I've been talking about this game on Twitter for probably 5 years. It's had some turmoil. It's switched engines twice. I think it's been on Unity, then Unreal Engine. And the game looks fantastic. It got a 7 out of 10, I think. But again, I don't really care about reviews. And from what I've seen, it's very faithful to the original. It's just, it's 3D, it's fancy graphics, it's modern. And yeah, it's coming to Xbox soon. Personally, I can't wait for it. I do think, though, for some reason, to me, it feels like it's going to be a Game Pass game. Like, it just seems like something Microsoft would go for to put in Game Pass. And with it being coming soon, October is stacked beyond belief. It really is. There's games coming out probably every other Tuesday. And I think, the System Shock remake will probably come out in, like, November when it's more safe. Maybe a week before Call of Duty or something. Like, Logan, I know you're looking forward to this too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I played the original one, and I didn't get too far in it at the time, but it's one I've always wanted to revisit, and this is the perfect time to jump in. Looks awesome. It's a hugely influential title, especially with the second one's remaster coming, and there may or may not be a third one ever coming. Depends on if that gets out of development hell or not. But I'm really looking forward to it, and Shodan is really cool.
Yeah, that franchise in general just hasn't had a good time. The remake, I should say the third one, like that's been through hell for I want to say 4 years, 5 years now, and the screenshots they have out for the third game look phenomenal. Like that looks like a next gen game. But yeah, again, it's probably coming soon. They're also coming out with the Two Rock remastered, Two Rock 3 remastered. Again, more old games. I'm cool with it. I can't wait for it. We have some juicy stuff here. Embracer. They've been gobbling up developers left and right for the past few years while, Microsoft's been scrutinized because they want to get Activision, and Embracer's just been sitting there buying all these developers. No one's checking in on them because they can get away with it. And it turns out, one of their deals fell through right after buying the Lord of the Rings IP, or to say most of the IP. And basically, like people have been wondering, like, what's their end game, right? They're coming out with like all these like small remasters and AA games. Like, where's their money coming from? Because they don't have a big game that, you know, basically generates revenue every year with like microtransactions or a multiplayer game. They don't have any game like that. It's mainly single player, and they do have some co-op stuff. So I've been wondering, like, what are they doing? They have like 3 publishing arms. Everyone looks at THQ Nordic as a joke because of how they manage things, and it's all disconjointed, And Time Splitters 4 is in the wind. Nobody knows what's going on. They tease these games at their showcases, and when they get announced, they're not really that much of anything. They teased the South Park game last year. I was looking forward to it, and then when they showed it off, I'm not even kidding. Graphically, it looked no better than South Park for the Nintendo 64 to me. Right, where you threw like snowballs at people that had pee on them, right? So, like, I think THQ Nordic, like, they've not really helped the whole situation. But anyway, where am I going with this? It turns out Embracer, they bought Gearbox Studios, I think it was last year, and they make the Borderlands games, which are massive. They were essentially going to be the biggest game by THQ Nordic. Well, it turns out they wanted to sell Gearbox and maybe some other developers, because again, they don't have revenue coming in like Activision, where they have this one game out every year where it generates millions, if not billions, of revenue just by selling microtransactions and skins and all that stuff. They're in a bad way. Like, I've always wondered, like, they always say, hey, we have like 84 games in development, and it's like, but none of them are AAA, none of them are multiplayer, so like, where's the money coming from, right? It never made sense. And I want THQ Nordic to succeed, right? They come out with a bunch of cool stuff. I like a lot of their older titles, but like after that, like Saudi deal fell through, they clearly just like were panicking, and the fact that they want to sell off Gearbox, which is rumored to come out with a Borderlands 4 soon, like I'm actually confused, right? It makes no sense. Logan, like, I think the Gearbox thing surprised everyone. Like, what do you think they're going to do with this whole situation where they're clearly panicking?
Yeah, it kind of comes off like somebody ended up with more money than they thought they had, and so they went on a massive spending spree, and then they kind of got caught up in the euphoria of it, and they're like, I'll take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, treat it like an all-you-can-eat buffet, and then when it's time to pay the tab, it's like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And it's like an all night bender, like night in Vegas, like whatever, to where clearly the financials did not match what their state of mind or something at that time, because it is they're hemorrhaging money. It seems like right now, and and Gearbox is a good studio. Whether you like their leadership or not, and personalities and stuff. Like, Borderlands is an established brand. People know it. People enjoy it. And it's one that gets people's attention. There's a movie in development. There's a spin-off or 2 spin-offs. And, like, for us, if they're truly looking to sell them or unmerge with them or make them independent or whatever, I can think of several companies off the top of my head that would make good sense to look into them. Like Sony, for starters, like they their Destiny thing has not been doing so great so far after they acquired Bungie. They really need a multiplayer game. They really need a good shooter, established franchise. Why not make a play for Gearbox to try to get at least something in that realm of gaming for their portfolio? Or Take Two owns the publishing rights for for Borderlands anyway. Seems like a no brainer to just pick up the whole studio and just own it all. And I mean, Microsoft obviously they looked into acquiring Gearbox ages ago before they bought Activision Blizzard. So potentially they could always go back to that if it's for the right price. But yeah, Embracer's in a real bad spot right now, and it's definitely one of those that's kind of teetering on thin ice. And I hope for their sake they get it together and keep things good. If not, the vultures might start circling soon.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Ubisoft's going to buy them. Like, if you look at Ubisoft, they're coming
That's
out
a
with
good bet.
they have about 12 Assassin's Creed games in development. Their upcoming shooter isn't exactly the best, and I think Ubisoft they really need a shooter with like story, basically a game people can keep going back to for years because that like people always go back to Borderlands, and I think that's a kind of game that Ubisoft's just missing out on. I think it kind of just makes the more sense to me. Like people always say like Xbox and like would it be cool? Yeah, but I don't know. Like when the whole thing popped up, I just thought, oh, Ubisoft's going to buy them. And speaking of Ubisoft, their Call of Duty esque first person shooter, which is meant to be the rival of Call of Duty, which I've played. By the way, Logan, did you play the beta for X Defiant?
No, and it sounds like I didn't miss anything.
You didn't, and it's so bad. Like the aiming's awful. Like the right bumper isn't a grenade; it's a power, and the maps were terrible. But anyway, that game failed certification for Xbox and PlayStation. Now,
Ooh,
yeah,
man.
I've never heard of a game doing that, right? So I've never heard of a game being in such a bad state, and it could be a few reasons, right? A game can fail certification if any of the text on screen, like let's say on the Xbox version says PlayStation, or on the PlayStation version it says Xbox, or if there are like fundamentally like game breaking bugs to the point where it fails. And we, as we were saying before, we get buggy games on consoles all the time. So the fact that it failed, whoo. But yeah, just felt the need to mention that. But yeah, Embracer, Gearbox. Like Borderlands is a massive IP, like absolutely massive. Like the film's coming out at some point, apparently it's finished. I know Kevin Hart's in it. That's pretty much all I know about it. And I probably end up watching it, but like Gearbox, like Randy Pitchford, like that is a weird combination. I do hope that Gearbox stays at Embracer, and then Embracer sort of becomes a. They need to become a big publisher themselves. Stop having everything under three publishing arms, because like, look, if you want one of their games by Embracer and THQ Nordic, they almost always come out with a collector's edition, but they never market their titles, and we never really see sequels to anything, right? They come out with classics remasters all the time, and people ask for sequels. And I think the only time we're getting a sequel for something is with what was it called? Outcast 2: The New Beginning, and now it's just called Outcast: A New Beginning. And that's pretty much it. They don't really have any other big games in development. And I want these smaller publishers to succeed because, like, at some point, if this like deal falls through, or like anything with Embracer falls through, we're only going to have Ubisoft, EA, Square Enix, and obviously Bandai, just a few others left. But I love the fact that Focus Entertainment, and I will praise them every week. They focus on single player content all the time. They clearly know what they're doing, and then you have THQ Nordic, where they just seem to have these like constant failures where they have so much potential as a publisher. They really do. They messed up Saints Row, but they could have fixed it. They could have came out with a remake of 2 and made everyone happy. They could have came out with, fix the whole time splitters thing and have everything under one house. Because again, at every one of their live streams for THQ Nordic, people would ask for games under different publishing labels, under Umbrella. So the situation was all messed up, and yeah, hopefully everything works out. I just don't want to see Gearbox or Embracer just crumble like we've seen with other companies. Anyway, before we move on, if everyone's enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps. YouTube, are really crap at sharing things out and all that stuff. I checked before. My own post wasn't even in my feed, which it's meant to be, but all that stuff. Anyway, Super Chats are live if you want anything answered or any of that stuff. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? I kind of want to talk about Mass Effect before we get into like the really big stuff.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, actually, before we get to the Mass Effect stuff, which is what I want to talk about, screw it, I'll include it. So, the next Mass Effect game was basically shown off at the Game Awards 2 years ago. And there's things about that trailer no one's picked up on yet except me. And I'm actually shocked that no one's noticed it. Which I really need to make a video about soon. I keep putting it off. But anyway, I'm excited, right? And I've said before that, Mass Effect 4, even though the description leaks, and it is basically going to be Mass Effect 4 with, Shepard and all that stuff, and that makes me happy. That game has to be an 11, even a 12 out of 10, right? Like, I will be heartbroken if that game just disappoints me in the littlest way. And I know that's immature, right? It's a franchise I've been obsessed with a little bit, admittedly. And the game has to be perfect, Well, anyway, we get some good news by Jez Corden of Windows Central. And this is the best piece of news to me, personally. And it's that the game isn't open world. It's going back to the regular format of Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. Which is hub worlds, where you have these really detailed connected areas that go to other connected areas, where you have these side quests that take place in their own unique locations that you only visit during those side quests, and like clear success, right? And I feel that that's going to pay off for them, right? You have these 3 amazing games, these 3 hub world RPGs, and then when they kind of do this open world thing with this repetitive open world content, that's when the game kind of failed. And like, Logan, are you excited at the fact that it's seemingly going back to a hub world game design?
Yes, absolutely. Like, obviously the Mass Effect trilogy is iconic and it was at its best with a hub-based system. I enjoyed Andromeda for what it's worth, but it pales in comparison to the original trilogy, and a big part of that was the hub-based worlds, to where they were big, they had separate sections, go to different places, do things, and then you're done with that region, you come back, and it kind of all just fluidly ties together. Where Andromeda, it was like, oh my word, I've been on this rock for 4 hours. If I have to go find one more of these goat things, I'm going to flip out. And it just, it just got too bloated and like Ubisofty in how they did their planets. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, like I've said before, like, and ever since that game was announced, I've said on Twitter, I've said on the channel, like, I love open world games. Clearly, I'm playing Starfield. That has a lot of open worlds in that game. It has 1,000.
A little bit, yeah.
Like, absolutely colossal game. And the truth is, like, as much as I love open world games, like me Skyrims, me Witcher 3, and all that stuff, not all games need to be open world. They really don't. Like, why does everything have to be a massive 1,000-hour game where, like, look, you said Ubisofty. It is a Ubisofty move what they did with Andromeda. And the thing I've always had this argument with people: how come Mass Effect 2 and 3 are these 50-hour long games where there's no repetitive content and all the areas are basically used once, right? It's because they had great mission design. The developers knew what they were doing. And, like all the development issues aside for Andromeda, the gameplay structure was crap, right? Whenever I talk about Andromeda Online, I try not to bash it because I know there's fans that love that game and I want them to enjoy it. And I don't like trashing things people like because, in my opinion, it's kind of off-putting to people. But to me, Andromeda, it was like someone ruined Christmas. I got coal by Santa Claus and it ruined my day. Right? My disappointment was immeasurable. And I didn't even understand that I was disappointed with Andromeda till about a week after I finished it, right? Skip back to 2007, right? I'm a wee lad. I played that game. I loved it. I was obsessed, right? I was bloody obsessed with Mass Effect, right? I finished that game, and that same night, after the credits rolled, I hit New Game Plus. That same night. That's how good it was, right? Skip forward to 2010 with Mass Effect 2. There's a fun story about that, what happened that day, which I'll talk about at some point, maybe, but not today. But when that game came out, I finished it, played it, loved it, and I hit New Game Plus the next day because I was busy. And then with Mass Effect 3, I hit New Game Plus a week later because I loved it, and again, I was busy. But Mass Effect Andromeda, I finished that game. I went to the main menu, didn't go back to the game since. In fact, the only time I reloaded that game after I finished it was when we got the Xbox One X patch in, I think it was like 2019, on N7 Day. And I took some screenshots, I closed the game, and I uninstalled it. Because I was so disappointed. Because, look, if you're a Mass Effect Andromeda fan right now, and you hear me out, I want you to say out loud when I ask this question. Can you name one character from your crew in Mass Effect Andromeda that isn't called PB? Most people can't. The story in that game was terrible. The soundtrack was okay. And when people ask me what was my favorite thing about Andromeda, do you know what I actually say? I like the font of the Andromeda Initiative in the game. I like a font. That's a plus for me for that game. I like a font, right? So, like, yes, Andromeda. And by the way, while I'm whining about this stuff and I'm letting people know how I really feel, Andromeda came out. It failed. It did badly, and it ruined me. It ruined me day. It was like, again, Santa Claus came into my house, gave me coal, kicked me in the nuts, and left. Right? That's how I felt. Well, like after I finished the game on my birthday in 2017. EA came out and said the franchise did the game did so badly, the franchise is going in hiatus. Right? On my birthday. Right?
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah, like I cannot, like I don't think I've talked about this story before, but like I was so heartbroken because the game came out in, I think it was like I think it was mid-March or early April, and my birthday is in the May, and like I finished it, and then my heart sunk. It literally felt like I went one over those bumps in a car where your stomach goes into your arse. It felt like that. It really did. It ruined my day, and like no, but why? Like that game was made in 18 months. 18 months. And my favorite thing from that game is a font. Really think about it. They failed. The characters were awful. There's things about that game I know about the developments which I can't say on the channel. But there's things about that game, bad things that happen behind the scenes. But like the game's like, if you enjoy the game, stop listening for 10 seconds. The game's trash, utter rubbish, dog shit. Like, what were they thinking? The story's terrible. You go to a different galaxy. It's 500 years later. We get these little messages from the past. And oh, what's this? We have 2 alien races in the game. But it's technically one because they're the same alien race. Anyway, Mass Effect 4. Mass Effect 4 is going back to the hub world design. And apparently they have the A-team working on the game. And, the thing with the Mass Effect Andromeda is that they had the multiplayer team make the game. And the thing about that team is they knew how to make multiplayer, right? Mass Effect 3's multiplayer is so good. So good. To the point where people still play it, right? people still play Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. It's one of the best multiplayer co-op games from the 360 generation. It's up there with Horde. It's amazing. And yeah, like thankfully they on doing something else. Maybe they can like patch games or something. Anyway, before we continue, we have a $2 super chat by Hacky Sack. Thank you very much. He says Anthem was worth it, worth the trade off, right? Now I can rant about Anthem, right?
Left the lights on, Jeremy.
Yeah, every time I tell people that story, I'm infuriated. So, I'm so angry. So, right, so Anthem, we get that lovely teaser, right? The Xbox One X was just announced. We get that lovely teaser at the very end of the show where you see the dude in the javelin flying through the forest. There's all these animals running through, and it's incredible, right? It's just like, wow, this is Xbox One X, right? Everyone was so hyped about it. I made GIFs all the time saying this game's going to be amazing. BioWare know what they're doing. Anthem's going to be the best thing ever. So, behind the scenes, I planned on doing a Anthem-specific podcast, right? Where every week we talk about Anthem, have people on that have, either worked on the game or, really big into the game to talk about their experience with Anthem. Basically what you get with Destiny podcast, but with Anthem. Because this was going to be one of those quote-unquote 10-year games. And I had art made. I had schedules planned for this Anthem podcast. And then the game came out. I could barely get the thing to work because, it was a very internet-based game, even though I had fiber optic broadband. So, like, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't play that, right? I could watch, like, 5 different films at the same time in 4K, but couldn't play this game. It was all over the place. Well, anyway, the game came out in, I think it was the October. They put the Christmas lights on in December in-game in the main town. And then it gets to, like, February or March, and people notice that the main town in the game, the developers left up the Christmas lights because they forgot about the game. Right? like they forgot about their own game and left the Christmas lights on. I've never heard of that in a game before, ever. Like a lot of developers, like big developers, if they do a Christmas themed thing in their game, they usually make it last till like this like January 1st or something, right? But no, they left it on till like February, March. Like BioWare, one of the best developers in the industry, an RPG developer, went to make this shared world, third-person shooter with first-person walking around scenes in the city, where it was going to have content for 10 years, but they couldn't get out a month's worth of content. The game was lackluster. The gameplay, though, that gameplay, though, was good. Very good. Logan, did you play Anthem at all?
Yep, I bought the Legion of Dawn edition, got the Steelbook, flew around, enjoyed my Iron Man moments, but man, that was truly sad.
Yeah, I think I got the deluxe edition. And again, like that game had so much potential, but hey, here we are. Like at some point I'll have to check my hours played in that game, but I'd be shocked if it was over 5. Like, that game had, like, no content at all. And it wasn't the game. And again, when we saw that demo in 2017 for the Xbox One X, EA essentially made that demo just to, like, show off, like, an idea. And a lot of the developers were shocked that it existed. So they had to, like, scramble together to make this thing that, like, looked like it, But yeah, all the story was just about Mass Effect 4. It's going back to a format that suits the franchise. Shepard's back, like I believe the quote unquote leak. Liara's back, my space wife, and it's going to be an amazing game. Hopefully, it has to be a 12. It has to be a 15 out of 10, right? Because this has Half-Life 3 level of hype for me, right? Half-Life 3 times 1,000, right? I'm gonna be so heartbroken if it comes out and it's like a 9. And I don't mean 9 Metacritic. I mean for me, right? Jokes aside, I can't wait for it. Like my main concern about Mass Effect 4 was the mission format or open world format because I saw Shizno Elite said in chat before, and I agree with him. Like, not every game needs to be open world. Right? Metal Gear Solid. I loved Metal Gear Solid. Did it really need to be open world? Did it really? Because the best parts in Metal Gear Solid 5 are when you're actually in a base, sneaking around, taking people out stealth-wise, maybe planting some C4 on something. And that didn't need to be open world. Which it's what terrifies me about the next Splinter Cell, right? After the remake, are we getting an open world Splinter Cell game? I don't need everything to be open world. Not everything needs to be open world. I've got Starfield. I've got 1,000 open worlds to explore, right? Developers, chill. And speaking of linear stuff, and I've asked you this before, Logan, but it was a while ago, so I'll ask you again. During the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 generation, the 8th gen, right? Can you name me one third-person linear shooter that wasn't made by Microsoft or Sony?
Oh gosh, during the Xbox One?
Yeah.
Oh boy, I'd probably have to go to my gaming library to look. Off the top of my head, that wasn't a first party from Xbox or Sony. I can't really think of one that was. All the ones that come to my mind are 360 or OG. I'm drawing a blank for the Xbox One generation.
I can tell you the number. It's about one. About one linear third-person shooter, not made by Microsoft or Sony or published by them, came out in that entire generation. Right?
What a colossal flop.
Yeah. Oof. And I see someone in chat wrote Binary Domain. That was the Xbox 360. The 360 generation.
Exactly. I was thinking of that one. But
the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, we had linear third-person shooters all the time. All the time. You had Spec Ops The Line. You had basically a million, right? You had a million Gears clones. There's a Japanese-made Gears clone on 360. I think it was called Quantum something. I can't remember what it was called.
Quantum Theory.
I think that's what it was called. And it was basically a Gears ripoff, right? But apparently it was pretty cool, right? There was a game called Inversion, where it was a linear third-person shooter where you changed the gravity and all this stuff. And like that generation was filled with linear games, but you switch forward to the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 generation, and everything's open world. Everything has to be open world now. Why? And I've said this before, and I'm going to rant again. It's to justify the price. It really is. And I think a lot of open world game design is extremely lazy. Now, this isn't a whole Jamie saying developers are lazy thing. This is me saying, like, why does everyone want a 100-hour game for every game? Right? I don't need every game to be 100 hours. I really don't. Binary Domain I've seen come up in chat 3 times now. It's a 360 game. A damn good 360 game, by the way. It's also a 60 FPS boost. But yeah, Mass Effect 4 can't wait. That was a bit long in the tooth, I'm sorry, but I needed to have a little bit of a rant. Even though Jez Corden broke that story, I want to give him a little bit of credit here. He broke that on Xbox 2, I believe. But he also broke another story, which we won't really talk about. But I feel like Jez Corden didn't get any credit at all. So the Switch 2 was at Gamescom. Behind the door, behind the scenes, and developers were checking it out. And Jez Corden broke that on Twitter, by the way. And nobody said anything about it. Reset Error, the cesspool of the industry, didn't give him any credit. And then Eurogamer comes out with a story about 3 days ago. Hey, guess what was at Gamescom? The Switch 2. And then all the Reset Error and NeoGAF threads were like, oh my god, there's a Switch 2 coming out. It's like, if you're going to credit someone, give it to the correct person. It was Jez Corden. Give him some respect. Actually, before I move on, Logan, do you want to talk about the Switch 2?
Yeah.
Obviously, like Microsoft, it's on Xbox device, obviously, but I think technically it's a 10th generation console, but I mean that's a debate for another day. People want Microsoft to do a handheld. I think when it comes to the handheld space, like, there's clear competition now. You have PC handhelds, you have the ERG or EOG, whatever you call it, handheld PC thing. You have the Steam Deck and all this stuff. The Switch 2 is apparently powerful enough to run the Matrix Unreal Engine 5 demo, and it might have backwards compatibility. Again, I push for BC on all platforms. I think everyone should have it. Honestly, I'm interested to see what it's like because the Switch came out after like people crap on Xbox saying they can never win or all this stuff. Like Nintendo was in the worst spot ever with the Wii U, and then they came out with the Switch, right? That's what a good decision can do, right? It can do good, right? It can completely change around a company. That's why I'm for this ABK thing and all this stuff. It's because it's going to help Microsoft improve. And, the Switch has been a colossal success. I think it's over 130 million Switches out in the wild. And people clearly want a sequel. One of my friends, she's been after a Switch 2 for ages. It's old hardware now. It's been out for like 6 years, I think. And yeah, it's apparently happening. Like, Logan, are you excited for the Switch 2 at all? Do you think it's really going to impact in like Microsoft or Sony with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox with the Series X consoles?
Yeah, like assuming they don't pull another Wii U, I expect it to sell at gangbusters, especially if it's actually way more powerful than the current Switch, which is, it works, but it could be a lot better. So if it's backwards compatible, it's significantly more powerful, and they get even more third party support on the device, like, yeah, I'm interested. I don't know why. I have this gut feeling that Xbox and them are gonna collaborate some more down the line, and that Game Pass on Switch will be a thing eventually. Called a prediction, but I think it will be a thing at some point.
Yeah, I know people have been wanting a portable Xbox handheld that basically had the guts of a Series S. I just mentioned this because I had this realization today while watching the Apple event that we could essentially see anything. When they had the iPhone 15 Pro Max, whatever the fancy one's called, this phone's going to be able to run things like Assassin's Creed Mirage and like Resident Evil Village. Like that's how.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I remember getting my first iPhone. I think was a iPhone 4, and like I had Dead Space on it, like the mobile made Dead Space game, and I was like, this is incredible, right? Awful graphics, by the way, but I was like mind blown that we have a full Dead Space game on mobile, and now we're at a point where like the new Assassin's Creed game is going to be on this mobile. The latest Resident Evil game is going to be on a mobile. So it's like it's crystal clear that Microsoft or Sony could come out theoretically with a powerful handheld, because people will say, "Oh, it has to be £1,000 handheld." It's like, not really. If you really think about it, like a phone has to have all the crap in it for a mobile phone, right? It has to have the antennas and basically everything a phone has. This just needs a battery, the processor, basically the innards of a Steam Deck, right? Just a bit more compact, and I don't know. Like I say that mobile thing today. I hear the Switch 2 having this great power for its like form factor, and I just think maybe Microsoft could actually do a handheld. Maybe we're finally there with technology, because again, Assassin's Creed Mirage is beautiful, and it's going to be on a mobile phone. Like that's crazy. That's where we're at now with technology. Yeah, Logan, have you got anything else on the topic before we move on?
No, just I'm excited to see it whenever they officially reveal it. And it is funny how they don't give credit to certain people, but then a few weeks later someone else says it and then they're all about it. That is a disturbing trend in the industry that keeps happening.
Yeah, I do notice it does happen a lot to Jez Corden. I I think that if someone breaks a story, you should give them give them a shout out, give them what they've like earned. But yeah, a bit silly. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what, Logan, you mentioned this, and I've seen it going around. And my opinion might be a bit controversial. Achievements. We've had achievements since 2005, and I thought achievements were a wonderful idea when that was announced. I thought it was like kind of game changing. The fact that you had these a system wide, unified score across games. That you get across different games and you compare with friends and all that stuff. I thought it was like a really cool thing, and to this day, I still think it is. And for the longest time, people have wanted some, how should I say, an expansion to the achievement program. Maybe like something in the equivalent of a platinum. And I'm going to put this out there, and I think it might be controversial before I let you go on, Logan. I think the platinum trophy idea, to me, it's why I don't like trophies. I think the whole platinum thing is a joke. I don't understand, like, putting a number value on an achievement doesn't really mean anything, right? But if you put like medal style things against them, like, you have bronze, silver, gold, and then platinum, like, I don't know, I don't like the idea of getting this special like platinum achievement for 100% in the game, right? Like, I look at the whole 1,000 point is like basically the equivalent. You get the whole point of a achievement system on a game, to me, is you have to reach 1,000 by doing these things, right? So like Fall Guys, right? People will joke. I admit I just hit 1,000 points, all 1,000 points in Fall Guys, right? I play that game with two of my friends. Please forgive me. But like Fall Guys, like I got the 1,000, right? In some game, I don't really care about getting all 1,000 points in games, right? As long as I finish the game, I'll replay them or whatever. And to me, I don't really like the idea of having a platinum style achievement, right? The whole 1,000 point thing is, for me personally, like the reward, right? It's seeing that one number match the one next to it. I could be in the minority. I know a lot of other people online have said that they want some sort of upgrade or difference, like something different to the achievement program. Personally, me, and I think there's other things that Microsoft need to improve on when it comes to Xbox. I could whine about DVR all day, right? When it comes to Microsoft, their form of DVR on console is terrible. Achievements, I like them the way they are. Logan, I know you've wanted to talk about this, so
Basically, like, I like the idea of adding a platinum, but I can see it from your point of view of like it changing fundamentally how some of it works, the scoring system and everything. What I'd propose would be kind of like a middle ground platinum kind of thing, to where it's almost like a badge, something like you earn for a specific game, where it doesn't give you score or something like that, but it's like something you can attach to your profile, or like an emblem, or like some artwork, like an extra thing that goes like, you have completely 100%ed this thing, congratulations. And it's like, it's attached to your thing, and it's just really cool and fun. And even above that, like, I really want some achievements for some OG games. I know it's low on the priority list of all the things they have going on, obviously, for to get achievements for games that are 20 plus years old. But if they could, it would be really cool, even if it was limited to some first party games or like a handful of games. It would just be fun, and it would add some more to it, especially if they did the fun little artwork stuff for them. Just, to me, there are some that seem pretty straightforward, like achievements for, like Knights of the Old Republic, for example. One of my favorite games ever. You talk Mass Effect all the time, I'll talk Knights of the Old Republic all the time. I can think of, off the top of my head, a whole bunch of achievements they could easily do. Light side ending, dark side ending, romance with this character, visited all these planets, fulfilled these factions, recruited all these companions, maxed out these skills, maxed out your ship, like, done this and that. Like, there's so much they could easily do for games like that. Or like shooters, like, finish this mission, this mission, this mission, this mission, this mission, you're done, you beat it on this difficulty. It's really not that hard for some of these games to get achievement ideas out there. I know some, they want to be creative, like, oh, you decided to smash all the TVs that were at this news station during this one mission, and it's some obscure thing that only a few people would even think to do. Like, I get it. Some developers want those. For the most part, it wouldn't be that hard, in my opinion, to streamline a achievement implementation for some of these older games. Even if they made like an app outside of it, they couldn't, know, alter the code enough to put achievements in these old games. If they could have an app connected to it or something that kept track of these things or something. Like, I think there's a way to get it done.
Yeah, you mentioned the whole sticker thing when you hit 1,000. Like that'd be cool. But I don't know. Like whenever I've seen it, like trophies, I always look at trophies as like the knockoff version of things. So like you might say
Yeah, I
like
feel it.
you might say like someone likes I don't know Snickers, right? Maybe like Snickers, right? But like down the street they sell something that's similar, and it's kind of off, right? The label isn't exactly the same. It's got a funky label, and that's how I see trophies. And it's not like a fanboy thing. It's just I don't like trophies. When I was on my PlayStation 3, I did not care about trophies at all. Like ugh, like no, like they should like I wanted Nintendo to do a direct copy of the achievement system. Like hell, they could do it with like coins, like gold coins or stars or whatever. But I don't like the idea of a trophy. But yeah, I mean, look. Again, I think that's the last thing Microsoft need to improve on. Again, DVR on Xbox is atrocious. Like remember, we used to be able to record 2 minutes of footage at 1080p, 60 frames, and then it just got cut in half to one, and we weren't told about it. Like, we just okay, that's why. Um, it's just I don't know. Like I think Microsoft they have better ways or better things to improve on. But hey, I mean that's just me. I'd be interested what everyone else in chat thinks because again, it's just my opinion. We have a lot to go over before the show closes, so we'll get going. You know what? Let's talk about Tokyo Game Show. We'll keep this short. So Tokyo Game Show is on, I think the 19th or something. I'll have to check. It's later in the month, and Microsoft put out a post the other day with some very cool artwork, and basically, we're going to be hearing about exciting new titles coming to Xbox Game Pass. Now, I don't want to be that person reading too much into things, but right now I'm going to be that person reading too much into things. Microsoft has said like they're working with Square Enix now. Square Enix they're going to start putting more games on Xbox, and this isn't about Final Fantasy VII. People have been clamoring for the Pixel remasters. And I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if maybe that's a big thing? That because the Final Fantasy games, I think in the US, might be in the UK as well now. Or might be worldwide. I haven't checked. The Final Fantasy games on Xbox right now are on sale. So
They are.
I don't know if that is like on PlayStation as well, on PC, Nintendo. Maybe that's a hint. But when I hear TGS and exciting new Game Pass titles, I kind of put, two and two together, and I get Final Fantasy. Right? I love Final Fantasy as a franchise. I want more games to come over. Square Enix, they've basically said like we're gonna work more to put games on the platform, and we just need to see more games come over. And whenever Sony or Nintendo have a showcase now, every single time there's a Square Enix game there, right? I immediately go to Twitter, check their profile to see if they have Xbox listed. Right? It's became a thing I do now. It's became a thing a lot of people do. Does. And I personally I think that we need a win from something in Japan, right? I don't know what it could be. We already know Persona 3 remakes coming next year, day one in Game Pass. That's going to be huge. It really is. But I feel like we need something from Square Enix. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. I probably am. But Logan, do you think there's anything going to happen there? Like, what do you think is going to be a Gamescom? Sorry, not Gamescom, TGS.
I think there will be a big batch of titles for Game Pass, and the fact that Phil himself is going to be there is another good sign that this will not be a token gesture kind of thing. This will be a substantial presence and event. And I think Final Fantasy, some of the older titles making it, makes a lot of sense. I think the Pixel Remaster collection that everybody, including Fire tablets, have except Xbox, like I think that will get rectified there. And you know, I bet Octopath Traveler 2 makes it as well. Cuz that's another one like the first one launched on Xbox and Switch and skipped PlayStation. And then they put the second one on PlayStation but not Xbox. And you're like, what are you doing? Like I think that one will make its way to Game Pass as well.
Yeah, I think that the only thing I can think of that is already out that could possibly come over with it being Tokyo Game Show. What if Elden Ring goes to Game Pass? Like,
Oh man, that'd be big.
yeah, like I finished Elden Ring and I cannot wait for that expansion whenever we may get it. But like I think Elden Ring would be a huge get for Game Pass because like that game's phenomenal. I could talk all day about Elden Ring and how amazing it is. It's one of the 5 games I've ever gave a 10 out of 10. Um, but yeah, I just hope we see something cool. Some years Microsoft goes to TGS and there's no big announcement, and people kind of let down by it, and I don't want to say that again. And at the back of my mind, I'm saying, Final Fantasy VII remake. It's going to be there, right? I want to play that on my Xbox. I keep having Crisis Core footage in the podcast because that's a phenomenal game, and I want to see what happens after the credits. I just hope we see something cool. But yeah, we'll move on. Before we get into the major topics, which is going to be some people aren't going to like, well, mainly professional reviewers. If you're enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Again, YouTube isn't sharing things out, which is really annoying, especially when you put things together. Super Chats Live, if you want to support the channel and all that stuff, it's really appreciated. Logan, so Starfield came out, and it's big, as you know. Everyone's playing it. My entire feed is Starfield, Starfield this, Starfield that, tips and tricks, people just posting memes. I'm seeing Sarah Morgan possibly every time I scroll Twitter. I'm
The
not.
space wife,
Yeah,
Sarah Morgan, yes.
yeah, like my second space wife, upcoming space wife, and the game's incredible. It really is. It's a Bethesda game. Like if you love Fallout or like Elder Scrolls, like you're blatantly gonna love this, right? Um, like one of my best mates who's probably listening right now, like he's gone on about Starfield for probably 2 years now, right? And he told me like he started the game and he felt it was disappointing, and then he put a few hours into it and he absolutely loves it now. And a lot of games have that thing for me, right? Fallout 3 is one of my favorite games of all time. I was bored out of my mind for the first 3 hours of that game, but
Oh, you didn't enjoy the goat test?
yeah, yeah. Oh, I hated it at the time, but like now I actually really enjoy it. But like that became one of my favorite games of all time because I think some games do have a slow burn, and Starfield does because you're stuck on that planet. You have to burn the bodies, and it's traumatizing. By the way, Logan, did you say that the whole thing with the the what do you call him? The guy that created God of War,
Oh yes, David Jaffe.
David Jaffe.
Shouts to him. Yeah, he said it's in his top three ever for single player games, and he's a very loud and opinionated guy, whether you agree with him or not.
Oh yeah.
But kudos to him. He will stand by his takes on stuff, and he will give good reasoning in his opinion why he agrees or thinks something. And he's been all in on it, and it's awesome to see. I even saw some people from Bethesda like reach out and were like, "Man, this is so cool! Like, I never expected to hear from him about this, and like, this is so cool." So people are really enjoying this.
Yeah, like like David Jaffe proved that fanboys pretend to play games just to whine about them, right? Like as soon as he said, "Oh, the part where you burn the bodies," I thought, "Okay, he's got him." That's a good way to get people. But like, the game's incredible, right? You know, he played it, he loved it. He said it's like one of the best, one of his favorite like single player games of all time. Doctor Disrespect, who admittedly said he couldn't get a deal with Bethesda, he loves the game. and like it's a once in a generation type of game. That's why everyone's talking about it. That's like Elden Ring, right? Remember Twitter the first 3 months after Elden Ring came out? Everyone was talking about Elden Ring. Which bosses they struggled with? What were their tactics with certain bosses? Like, gameplay styles and all that stuff. Secret bosses, because again, Elden Ring has like 149 like optional bosses. Like most of the bosses in Elden Ring, you don't have to fight, and this is one of those games, right? It really is. People are discovering these things all the time. There's doors with these hinges which you can just shoot off, and just like small things like that. And where am I going with this? David Jaffe did that with the fanboy. They tried to get Alana Pierce fired because she enjoyed the game. How dare she? And I think it's kind of deplorable. People have gone absolutely batshit crazy. Right? I try not to swear, but I have to. People have gone batshit crazy, right? Just because people are enjoying the game. Everyone that says, lol, it's like No Man's Sky, why the hell haven't you been talking about No Man's Sky every time they've put out an expansion every 6 months? We know why. It's because Starfield is damn good. I'm calling these people out. Professional reviewers. Their job is to be professional, to review a game, and don't be biased. And I put out a tweet 2 days ago to get a bit of a reaction, admittedly. And I said, I don't think there's a bias against Xbox. I don't think that. I know there is. Right? That's the truth. You have Metro, who didn't get a review code, but if you look at all their articles, they push the reader-suggested ones, which are all negative against Xbox. The Starfield, basically, they've been against Starfield every single day. And they didn't get a review code. They basically said in the review, we didn't get a review code. You have Jim Sterling or something. I saw floating around on Twitter this image.
Oh, good grief! Yeah, that thing.
Is that? Yeah. It was a 4 out of 10, right?
Yep.
Like a 4. Like
that's an apocalyptically bad game, by the way. A 4 out of 10.
Yeah, a 4 out of 10 is a bad game. Like I've always said, like a 7 out of 10 isn't bad, right? I think the way people look at reviews is that they see a 10 as amazing, masterpiece. They see a 9 as great. They see an 8 as okay, and they see a 7 as terrible and broken. A 4 is a broken game. A 4 is your Life of Black Tiger, right? A 4 is, I'm looking at
Vampire Reign.
Yeah, Vampire Reign. A 4 is, The Mummy Returns on PlayStation 2, which, in my opinion, is possibly the worst game ever made. That's probably a 2, actually. Screw it, I'm going to be a bit harsh. I'm going to give it a worse score, but like a 4. But this person, and like someone found a video of like 6 years ago or something where Jim Sterling at the time said that they are against Xbox and they are clearly biased against Xbox. And I thought, well, like, how can you act like that? How can you act like that? And how can you be like Metro and you have your official review on Metacritic? Because every time that score goes down, the fanboys are doing their thing, posting a screenshot and saying it's the worst game ever made. It's like, this game was going to be money hatted by Sony. We all know what the song and dance would have happened if it was the other way around. This game would be a 95 plus on Metacritic. It would be a shoe-in for Game of the Year by Jeff Keighley. And it would be heralded as the best game ever made. But the fact it's a Microsoft Xbox exclusive now, it's getting nitpicked beyond belief. It really is. I'm seeing absolutely massive content creators with millions of subscribers that are grifting this game because negativity for Starfield is just getting views, right? And it's deplorable, right? People hate Microsoft, right? As an Xbox content creator, I have to deal with this, right? Microsoft has been on their back foot for 3 generations. Everyone listening right now, you know this, right? Ever since Microsoft entered the console business, people have been against them, right? Sony pushed Sega out. It was okay. People hate the fact that Microsoft have stayed around and have actually outlasted Sega in amount of years in the console business. The truth is, a lot of people in the gaming industry do not like Microsoft for whatever reason. They just don't like Microsoft. And that's whenever they come out with a new game or product, they scrutinize beyond belief. People overreacted today or yesterday about the credit card, but Sony came out with one 3 years ago and nobody batted an eye. Microsoft does something, Sony does it, and it's okay. And we all know by now there is a clear bias. We don't think it, we know it. This isn't tinfoil hat time, Jamie. This is like, if you have someone putting out a review, a 4 out of 10, and they've said on their YouTube channel, yes, I'm against Microsoft, you clearly know there's something up. It's shady, dodgy even, suspect, sus. And I just look at, like, I don't care about Starfield's Metacritic score. I'm playing it. It's incredible. And like I said, I've only ever given 5 games ever a 10 out of 10. Will Starfield also get a 10? I don't know. But at the minute, it's all I think about when it comes to games. I don't want to play anything else. And when I'm not playing Starfield, I'm thinking about Starfield. I had that with Fallout 3. I had that with Elden Ring. I had that with Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3, the first Mass Effect, right? And this is a special game. And it's not going to win Game of the Year by Jeff Keighley. We all know that. We all know that, right? It's going to be the highest scored Metacritic game. It's going to be Baldur's Gate because it's on a PlayStation. And, like, look, I'm looking forward to Baldur's Gate. I'm going to buy it day one. And, like, Logan, we both know not the Outer Worlds, Starfield, it's not going to win Game of the Year on Jeff Keighley's show.
Yeah, I would say that it. I would be very surprised if it did. I think it deserves it. I think it will be a finalist, but I would be surprised if it won. Because it's just not how things work with the way they run things and do things and who all they send votes out to and all that. Fair, wrong, right, whatever. It's the way it is. And even the Metacritic score thing, like, if you want to jump into that, like, I remember when they used to brag all the time, like, oh yeah, our games of the year always align with Metacritic or this or this. And then Metacritic even kind of backhanded him on it and said, well, if that was the case, how come Forza, Horizon 5 wasn't in a finalist for Game of the Year? It was the highest rated game that year, and you didn't include it at all. And so it's disingenuous, and people know that.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is that like people will end up listening to this if they don't like me because, excuse me, like if you're an Xbox centric content creator, you get a metric ton of crap just for having a preference. And I'll say this, like, look, no matter what people say right now about the anti-Xbox thing and Metacritic or YouTube, Twitter, whatever, you have to say that, you have to admit that, like, it's clear that there was people hyped for Starfield when they thought it was going to be a PlayStation exclusive. And then the second it switched, people were actively against Starfield. And then when we saw Starfield last year, people were immediately comparing it to No Man's Sky, all by people that never really played or talked about No Man's Sky. All these people only start talking about Baldur's Gate 3 when people thought it was an exclusive to the PlayStation platform. There's developers that put their games out on Xbox, and you have certain outlets that completely forget to mention that it's releasing on the platform. Lies of P, marketed with Xbox, releasing in Game Pass, wasn't listed on IGN. Sea of Stars, coming to Game Pass, well, now out in Game Pass, wasn't listed. Persona 3 Remake, announced on the Xbox stage, marketed with Xbox, and going to be launching day one on Xbox Game Pass. And it was the platform that was left out by accident. Like, this isn't a tinfoil hat thing. It's like, you just have to have eyeballs, right? Have eyeballs, look at what's going on, and it's crystal clear. Microsoft's still fighting this uphill battle to where you have people on, TV stations asking Phil Spencer, is this Starfield ever going to go to PlayStation? We all bloody know the answer. Stop asking the fucking question, right? And this past week, I've seen this bloody thing about, is Elder Scrolls 6 going to be on PlayStation? We all know if Sony bought Bethesda, no one would ask that question. No one. No one. And it would be praised. Screw it, I'm going to go off. Remember how Microsoft got the exclusivity for 1 year for Rise of the Tomb Raider, and certain people at IGN were like, this is terrible. That means less people can play the game. But when Final Fantasy VII Remake was announced as a PlayStation exclusive, it was genius. Marvelous. Wonderful. It's crystal clear. It's out there. I'm going to go off more. Microsoft announces that you can play movie files on your Xbox One, and then it's marketed as pirating from Kotaku. And then Sony gets the same feature a year later, and the same writer says, hey, guess what? PlayStation now lets you watch MKV files. Right? Same person, same story, wrote a different way. And I kind of hit my breaking point this week because, like, it's clear. We can all see it. Right? The Metacritic score will continue to go down by these outlets and YouTubers that are clearly against Microsoft. And Microsoft is going to fight this uphill battle. Why do you think they buy in, Activision and all this stuff? Is it because, one, you have all these big conglomerates buying up other developers and smaller publishers. And if Microsoft, like, Logan, put it like this. If Microsoft didn't get exclusivity for Bethesda and Starfield, we would have been living in a time where the two biggest games of the year would have been exclusive right now to PlayStation. Can you imagine the crap we would be seeing online? If Baldur's Gate 3...
It'd be straight up having a bad time, bro. It would be bad.
Yeah, it would... Like, imagine if Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3 were just de facto exclusive to PlayStation. And nothing would be out on Xbox right now. Like, that's happening in an alternate universe somewhere, and I'm so happy I'm not there. Because Microsoft's fought this uphill battle for years, and it's going to continue. And, like, people can say I'm wearing a tinfoil hat, but, man, it's so obvious at this point. It really is. And, like, again, people are trying to get Alana Pierce fired for liking Starfield. She proved that you can fly physically to other planets. And people were atting Herman Holst to try and get her fired. You have people lying that they've played it just to say that they can say, hey, it's mid. That's where we're at now with games. And, the review bombing online, I hate that. I hate the fact that people create an account to leave a low score, and it works both ways. Don't give a game a 10 just because you enjoy it, and don't give it a 0 because you dislike who's making it. And it's like, the system's broken, and it's one of the reasons why I don't really like watching the Game Awards for the awards, is because it's just a popularity contest for who's in charge. At least that's what it feels like. And, like, I would love to be proven wrong. Like, let's say hypothetically Starfield wins Game of the Year on the Jeff Keighley show. One, I'd be shocked. If it happens, I will eat a hat made of cheese on camera. I will do that. But yeah, it's just an awful situation, and just the shady reviews, and it all combines to it's obvious, right, Logan? Surely I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat. It is obvious.
This isn't tinfoil hat. This is called actually being willing to call a spade or speak out on the quiet part out loud that people don't want to talk about, or people don't want to ruffle feathers, or don't want to step on toes, or they want to play the fake neutral card. I'm like, get out of here with that. Like, you see what's happening. You know what's going on. Like, it's obvious. I have never ever in all the years I've followed gaming, seen scoring, played games, discourse, enjoyment, all this of gaming, have I seen a game deal with this much disingenuous vitriol and cultish fanboy toxicity, and it feels almost coordinated type dinging on the game from places across the globe, try to detract it, And then like, oh, even if it's not scores, it's opinion pieces. Like, this isn't a life-saving game. This isn't gonna change the perspective. This is niche. I'm like, do you even know what niche means? Like, are you aware of what that word means? Like, do you know the context of that? Like, setting record-breaking numbers of a Bethesda title of all time in a couple days once it officially launched, on top of the fact it already had 2 million plus in early access. That doesn't seem very niche to me. So, and just all these takes that are egregious, like dinging a game when you've only played a few hours of it and you haven't even done hardly anything or seen much of stuff, is rushing things out there. Like, if you do a review and you don't even mention the powers, it's like you didn't even get to that point. I'm like, that changes the game a lot. Like, that's a big part of the game. And the whole comparing it to No Man's Sky or trying to set up some weird fanboy feud with Star Wars, which is just ridiculous. Like, I love both Star Wars and um Starfield. Like, currently, like, it might be a cop out, but I'm kind of leaning towards having co-games of the year right now between Starfield and Jedi Survivor because I love them both so much. They both emotionally impacted me in significant ways. The story, the characters, the gameplay, just so vastly different, yet they're both space and fantasy and just wonderful. And like the fact that they're trying to spin all this stuff, trying to get people fired, canceled, just disingenuous stuff. And then they whine and moan like petulant children about not getting review codes. And then they ding the game or they come up with these like almost hit piece type articles and thought pieces, quote, thought pieces out there. And then have the audacity to wonder why everybody's mad at them or like calling them out for their bull. It's like, what did you expect to happen? Did, you can't expect to constantly ding and berate and harass and criticize and belittle and whine and moan about something. And then they decide, you know what, we're going to ignore you or we're finally going to shift perspective. And then you get like, but that's not fair. That's not right. It's like, get out of here. Everybody knows what's going on. It's just not very many people have the balls to talk about it. That's bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be fair. Like, I am an Xbox centric content creator. Like, that's crystal clear. But guess what? Just to prove how fair I am, I put out a video in 2020. It was my game of the year from every year from 2006 to 2020. Highly recommend people watch that. Took a long time to make, but if I remember correctly, not a single Xbox exclusive won game of the year for me. Like, at all. Right? I haven't gave an Xbox exclusive a 10 out of 10. They're all multi-platform games. My current game of the year is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Will that change? I mean, at the rate of my enjoyment of Starfield, it's likely, but the fact that Jedi Survivor to me is incredible. Like, the fact that that got crapped on so much is kind of heartbreaking because it's just so good, and it's a special game. And like, if Starfield somehow takes that over, maybe we'll have a sixth 10 out of 10 game from me. But like, it's crystal clear. There's like, everyone's against Starfield. And do you know what's really annoying? You have places like IGN giving that game a 7, but they are grifting the hell out of that game. Like, hey, 10 coolest side quests to find out in Starfield. 15 things you need to know about Starfield before you play. It's like, they're doing it because obviously it's getting views. But like, if a game's a 7, but you're making that much content about it, yet you haven't made that much content about other 7s, and like, a game getting a 7 is not a bad game. It's not a bad game. But like, I look at Starfield and think, how do you give this a 7? Like, it boggles the mind. And I have seen Discord messages of apparent reviewers that have openly said, "Hey, I played this game for 5 hours." Like, also you didn't finish it. And I've always seen this back and forth between like developers and reviewers and people that should a developer finish a game? Sorry, should a reviewer finish a game before they review it? And I think it depends on the game. Like FIFA, you can't finish FIFA, so obviously not, right? You need to know all the features, different things you can do in the game, stuff like that. Minecraft, technically you can finish Minecraft, right? But when that was like in its like massive heyday, it didn't have an ending. So you don't have to finish the end. But like when it comes to Starfield, yes, play till the end. Like that is like stupid. Like Red Dead Redemption 2 when that came out, I saw some reviewers didn't finish it. It's like, no, finish the damn game, right? Because I guess what? I don't say this at the end of Metacritic scores. Hey, played this on X console on this difficulty, and I only played 5 hours of it. No. It's listed as this score I played off 5 hours. It's stupid. I'm sorry I'm ranting, but like, this past week has been hell online. Every single post I make about Starfield, look at the replies. It's someone saying, "Oh, it's like No Man's Sky." It's not. I've played No Man's Sky. It's a great game, but it's not like that. And it's like the amount of vitriol you see online for it. I've been online for every single Bethesda game since Morrowind, right? Morrowind, people weren't arguing like this. Oblivion, people weren't arguing about this, despite the horse armor, which was a new thing at the time. And, Fallout 3, Skyrim, Fallout 4, Fallout 76 didn't have this much blowback. Every single post has people hating. I post clips on Twitter daily, and every single post just has people being bitter and vile. And it's a single-player story game where you're in space, exploring, doing cool stuff, and it's made people angry. This is the first time I've ever seen a game be controversial for just being good. Isn't that sad? And man, it's just awful. Like, why is it? We all know why it's this way, but it's like, if this situation didn't open people's eyes up to how certain industry folk are, then nothing will, right? Again, nothing is in Microsoft's favor. They can, like, people don't want to give Microsoft any credit for this game, yet they will say, hey, Microsoft is the reason Redfall the way it is, the way it was received, but we can't give Microsoft Starfield credit. It's stupid. It really is. And this whole thing right now is going to pick back up in 2026 or whenever, when the Elder Scrolls 6 launches. And that, in my opinion, that's going to be tenfold, right? That's going to be like now, but worse. Because guess what? Elder Scrolls 6, it's going to be exclusive, as it should be, because that's how these platform holders work. And yeah, again, like, it's sad, isn't it, though? A game comes out like Starfield, which is a once-in-a-generation type game, and it gets crapped on for being good, right? And do you know what really sticks out, which no one's really mentioned? Baldur's Gate 3 gets heralded as this masterpiece, which I'll say again, I'm going to buy day one. People are saying, look, it's a single-player game without microtransactions. And what is Starfield? It's a single-player game without microtransactions. But no people in the industry are talking about Starfield that way, right? People are all talking about all the kinky crap you can do in Baldur's Gate 3, but they won't mention that you can have relationships in Starfield. Like, what's with this weird background?
Like real ones,
yeah, like
real good development.
And by the way, I don't have a problem with either. I think cool. I think both can work. Like, I play BioWare games, right? I know what's up. People in games do that stuff, but like in Starfield, you can get married. But in Baldur's Gate 3, you can shag a bear, right? And that's praised, and I don't care. Like, people can enjoy whatever they want, but like, it's crystal clear. Like, again, back to the whole single player content thing. Baldur's Gate 3 gets praise for being single player with no DLC. Starfield gets no praise for being single player with no DLC. What's up? Logan, have you got anything else on the topic before we close out the show?
I mean, it's like just a never ending cycle, and I guess we'll go there since we've already opened this Pandora's box anyway. But the whole like you saw the thing about Rotten Tomatoes the other day, right? With
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
PR firms.
yeah,
And so like just saying if that's happening in the film industry, um what's to say it wouldn't be happening in the game? Not saying it is, not saying it isn't. Just something to think about. The fact that it's apparently established and known and that they're trying to crack down on it. And another thing is like I think Starfield once and for all has proven how broken and outdated the review process is. Like recommend a game or don't, or buy, pass, or like ACG does, where you're buy it now, wait on
yeah,
sale, or don't buy it. Like have a system like those. Like just the whole like what's a 10 to one person versus apparently a 7 to somebody else. It's it's outdated, and especially when you have review bombing and goofy stuff like that where I who is getting approved for all these codes or access to do it if it can have impact on these people like this? Like, why is some random blog boy from I don't know across the globe with follower count or a presence of this much getting as much weight as this company, which apparently is this huge conglomerate that does this, that for their writing? And like, it's just the whole thing is just cluster cluck. And I think this Starfield has just proven one way, once and for all, that the whole system's broken. Time to break the wheel on it. And I'm not even going out there like sword rattling saying like if you didn't give this a 10 out of 10, you're a fraud and you're a liar and like no, like reasonable minds can disagree about how quote amazing good whatever this game is. But there's been so much disingenuous stuff with it. I've just had it about it.
yeah. I mean, like you said before, and I've mentioned in like other episodes, like ACG, in my opinion, does the best reviews on YouTube. Like that rating
Hmm.
system just works. In future when I do more reviews, I reviewed Terminator Resistance when that came out, right? In fact, I think I was the first review or one of the first reviews on YouTube that reviewed that game, obviously. And I didn't give it a score because I didn't know how to score it because it was the best Terminator game I've ever played. It was faithful to both films, and you could tell it was slightly held back by its budget, but I didn't know how to rate it. So I said people need to make up their own mind. It's a damn good game, right? And that also gets its next gen upgrade next week, I think. Great game. But I do plan on scoring games out of 10, but I plan on thinking more about it. Like I didn't get a review code for Starfield. Like I'm looking at the page right now, it says pending. Right? I didn't get a review code, but like I'm probably going to rate it pretty high because I think there's no game like it. The system's broken. The past week has proven that, and yeah, it's a shame we like this because I like I'm a positive person, but like this stuff really puts me down. I don't like it. Like people should be enjoying this game like we enjoyed previous Elder Scrolls games and previous Fallout games, and this is like a new game like that, but in a different universe and a different style. And no, it's just constant negativity and it's forced, and I hate it. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Um, Again, if you enjoy the show, please like, share, and subscribe. YouTube this week has not shared the crap out of this video, and it's annoying, especially as a quote unquote up and coming content creator. It's annoying. Anyway, everyone in chat has been awesome. This is the best chat on YouTube. I swear, everyone's always chill, and like I hop into other people's chats and you can get these fanboys and arguing. It's like none of this chat. Love this chat. But yeah, we will be back at the same time next week. I'm hoping to get a video about Starfield out. Not necessarily a review, but my thoughts, my overall thoughts on the game out soon. Have some really big like Xbox centric stuff coming out soon. If you're into Xbox first party content, wink wink, hint hint. Hopefully should have that out in the next few days or next week. Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out the show?
No, just hopefully this ABK thing is wrapped up soon. We haven't even mentioned that in a few weeks, but it sounds like it's wrapping up soon. So apparently the European Commission has sent out a revised thing to some companies to ask their thoughts on the proposed Ubisoft kind of tweak that they've thrown into the deal to see what they think, and it sounds like it'll be wrapping up soon.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get on to all that stuff next week. It's been an interesting week for news, but I just wanted to get the whole. But like, we've been talking about Starfield for like 40 minutes. It just needed to be talked about. But yeah, we'll be back at the same time next week. All of our socials are in the description down below for X. I'm not calling it X, it's Twitter. And the link for my last video, which is 10 biggest games coming out in September, the link is in the description down below. Most of those games still aren't out yet. Surprisingly, even though Starfield's out, September is a packed month. So yeah. Anyway, same time next week. We're out. Peace, everybody.